Well, Monday Night Raw wasn't exactly received well last night in Detroit. And I understand why. It was a lot of rinse and repeat, as the title of this show says. It felt very repetitive. And yes, there was a lot of backlash for no women's promos in ring or matches to be had in the 3 hours, which is pretty striking, I have to say. Is it the end of the women's division? No, it's not. Is it a bit disturbing if you're a woman on the roster? Well, it's something to take note of and something to see if it becomes a pattern or more frequent over the next several weeks or months. But sometimes they just don't have anything. It is simply that they didn't have anything they felt was worth TV, which was pretty damn crazy. Yes, we had Io Sky and Liv Morgan, but that was a cartoon segment. DanHausen beginning to get overexposed, as many people are saying. I would start to take note of that if I were WWE. They have a tendency of doing that, though. When they find something that works, they bury it and they resurrect it and kill it again. That has been the MO of WWE, even back to the Vince McMahon days. When they find something, they find a formula that works, look out, because they will absolutely abuse it to the point where the fans start to turn on it. And I'd be very careful with DanHausen. He is a unique asset, one that I can't remember ever really comparing anyone else to in the history of my watching wrestling, where you didn't even have to be in the ring to be successful. It's a hell of a needle that they've threaded with DanHausen. So, a weird Monday Night Raw. It was not very good. One of those that if you bought tickets, you probably feel as if you didn't get your money's worth, especially if you were in the lower level of the arena. You likely felt that you came out of there going, yeah, I don't know if I'm going to come back. And rightfully so. But you can't have every Raw be a winner. You can't. It's not possible. And some of you may say, well, all the Raws have been bad for a while. Well, hold on a second. We had Roman Reigns. We've had Brock Lesnar. We have Seth Rollins and Roman Reigns, one of the more storied rivalries in the history of WWE. We have Brock Lesnar on the back end of his career that could retire at any moment for real. All right. You've got LA Knight out there, but he continues to be part of the problem, not really a fault of his own, given that he's been trapped in the bloodline story for years. That's not hyperbole. You have a women's division that is really hurt by the Rhea Ripley injury. You have Stephanie Vaquer on the shelf. Liv Morgan has cooled off. Io Sky's cooled off. We've already seen that match at the previous PLE. That doesn't help things. So the women's division in a weird spot on top of Paige, who returned but has really been hidden inside the tag team division. You have stars there. Charlotte Flair, who has she's in a weird spot and a conversation all in and of herself, maybe at some point in the future, but she doesn't get much of a reaction anymore. Alexa Bliss, who in a tag team with Charlotte has been really good for a tag team, but we all know that Alexa Bliss can do a whole lot more by herself. So you have a division that's riddled with injuries. You have apparently none of the women's segments worthy of Monday Night Raw outside of the Io Sky nonsense with DanHausen and the Hausen-mobile or whatever the hell that thing is. It's in a weird spot, okay? And yeah, it felt very weird with no women's matches on the show. But and Liv Morgan is in some trouble according to the court of public opinion because of her boyfriend's family's affiliation with a church, and there's some political implications. We won't talk about that here. Maybe I'll make a video about it, but there's a lot of weird contributing factors right now that make WWE a not great product. Some of the matches, though, if you take away this week's Monday Night Raw, you're in any Raw that leads up to this SummerSlam, if you didn't like it, you don't like next week's final go-home show, if you just look at the card for SummerSlam, it's a pretty damn stacked card. It's a massive card. On top of looming returns out there, like potentially Drew McIntyre, like potentially Randy Orton, or dare I say Kevin Owens in the coming months. Maybe, hopefully. There's some big guys out there. Some potential big turns like Cody Rhodes turning heel. Potentially. You have things on the table. Roman Reigns taking on Seth Rollins. Obafemi and Brock Lesnar inside Hell in a Cell, which is likely Brock Lesnar's final Hell in a Cell match. Yes, you have Danhausen versus Dominic Mysterio for the human monies, whatever. I know people are crapping on that, but I'd rather see Danhausen in the ring start to transition more in ring than I would actually have him doing his backstage stuff that is being overexposed, and I think will lead to an eventual collapse if you continue to just utilize him in this way. I would also not make him 3 segments on the show. We don't know what the hell Judgment Day is anymore. But the SummerSlam card is actually pretty damn good. Io Sky and Liv Morgan, despite the fact we just saw it, we know can work well together. There's a case to be made for both of those women to come out as champion. There are some good matches, some big-time headlining matches. CM Punk, Cody Rhodes, like I said, is the very intriguing one where we don't know what could happen. So before everybody craps all over this week's Monday Night Raw, and yes, we will have our things to say that are not positive about the show in detail in a moment, but I would like everyone to kind of take a look at the big picture here. Look at SummerSlam. The builds for PLEs have been abhorrent, including WrestleMania over the last several years, really, as a whole. Not every PLE, but as a general prescription, a general, I guess, what's the diagnosis? The builds to PLEs have been subpar to be kind. But then you come out of the PLEs, I would say more often than not, saying, hey, not a bad show. The wrestling was really good. Not everyone. Some of them leave a really bad taste in your mouth, but I'm saying just what is more common? What is happening more as a result of the PLEs coming out of them? Are you coming out of them saying, hey, you know what? The build wasn't great, but I really enjoyed the PLE more than I thought. Now, you could be a pessimist and say, well, you know, that's them manipulating your view of the show by not having a great build and then having a semi-good show that is now skewed to be even better than it otherwise would have if they had a good build. But I don't think that there's any reverse psychology going on here, because if that was the case and they were purposely making the build look crappy so that the PLE coming out of it you felt was better than it otherwise would have been, then the problem with that is that you would have viewership drop up until the PLE. People would be watching the PLEs, but the builds to them, they'd be like tuning in and out. You'd see ratings drops. And actually we have. That bears itself out. If you look at the ratings on Netflix for Raw, it has taken a nosedive, and not just for a month or a week, like the whole year. So there's stats on that if you want to dig into it. But there's another. I got to write down all my video ideas. Nonetheless, let's get into Monday Night Raw. It's a hell of an open. If you want to go ad free, patreon.com/WWE podcast. So, good God, let's get into it. Let's get into the details here. And it opened with a Saturday Night Main Event recap. And we had the World Tag Team Champions Braun Breaker and Austin Theory take on Javon Evans and Dragon Lee in a non-title match. So this match went a total of 9 minutes and 45 seconds with Braun Breaker and Austin Theory beating Javon Evans and Dragon Lee. And the finish was Theory holding Lee while Breaker ran the ropes about 18 times, just to show how fast he is, I guess, and then speared him. Breaker then covered Lee for the 3 count. After the match, Otis and Tozawa come out to a decent reaction, I thought, and they got the better of Breaker in Theory, and Dupree got in the ring and slapped Otis. Breaker came in and Otis saw him coming and clotheslined him. And then Otis and Tozawa cleared the broadcast table, set up for a power bomb, but Breaker cut him down with a spear that Otis took pretty rough. I mean, I give him credit. And then Theory drilled Tozawa with a left hand, and Dupree sat on the turnbuckle, and chaos ensued. Ends with the Vision overcoming Otis, Tozawa, and standing tall. So a good heat segment for the newly established or kind of continuingly evolving Vision. I still don't know, no pun intended, what the vision is for this group. I guess it's just the up-and-comers that they view as the next generation of main event talent, I think. Maxine is fitting in nicely, playing that heel role manager very well. The heel manager role, rather. She's playing it nicely, being the catalyst, the kind of straw that stirs the drink. I like how she's been implemented, particularly last week, and kicking Otis right in the balls was really funny. And then having her this week do some damage by distracting and ultimately allowing Braun Breaker to get up and do his thing. And Breaker, despite the concerns about Breaker, and I understand that there's the Unreal season 3, whatever. I haven't even watched a full season of it yet because it just, the whole concept of having Unreal is so ridiculous. Because I'm trying not to get on a tangent. This is my struggle. But the idea that Unreal exists is the embodiment of how TKO views and completely disrespects the professional wrestling industry. They're trying to just almost redefine their product and what they do, and making sure that everyone knows what is going on, and it's not truly a real competitive sport as if we haven't known for 50 years. But it also is kind of, I guess, a multi-layered issue, because there's that. I don't like how TKO's has it exist at all. But again, it's on brand for how they view pro wrestling. But secondarily, we're only seeing what they want us to see with Unreal. So while it's being advertised, marketed, and sold as this behind-the-scenes, fly-on-the-wall type of show that you get to peek into the production meetings and the backstage stuff, you get to see what we're not supposed to see. Well, don't forget, they're only showing us what they want us to see. That is what it is. It's a curated version of what's going on backstage. I'm not saying it's completely fake. I'm not saying that's how things aren't truly determined, and that I'm not saying that the way that the conversations go in the show are completely false or that they're produced, but it is very much only what they want you to see. So take that show with a grain of salt. Okay? Because if it was truly something they wanted us to see, we'd have a live feed at all times to their production meetings and hearing about what they're going to do. But of course, they can't do that if they're going to produce TV Forward with the ideas. But nonetheless, you catch my drift. Okay. However, let's move on. We had, by the way, I enjoyed this match. Really, I thought it was a good opening match. Really did. I thought that the chemistry with all four men was well done. Javon Evans, in some of the close near falls that he had, were impressive. Evans breaking up the the neck breaker over Theory's knee was really well done. Breaker coming in and spearing Evans. I mean, who doesn't Breaker spear? We're always supposed to, again, take note of how quick Breaker is. But, that's my point. I knew I had some kind of point about Unreal. It was revealed that Braun Breaker was supposed to win the Royal Rumble this past year. But the reason that the producers and creative decided, hey, we're going to wait, is they didn't want this to be perceived that Braun Breaker is being shoved down our throats. Well, the difference of a star being shoved down our throats and the crowd ready for someone to win is pretty significant. If you want a perfect example of someone being shoved down our throats, look at Roman Reigns in 2015. A time that even Roman Reigns doesn't like to look back on because it was so horrible. Having the Philadelphia crowd absolutely destroy him. The Rock couldn't save him. the absolute just embarrassment of that segment. That is how you shove someone down our throat and the crowd regurgitates it. But when you have a guy like Braun Breaker, who the crowd is getting behind organically, there's a case to be made to put him in that position. I'm not saying he would be ready for it. I'm not saying it would be a good idea. But if you're going to not do it because you think he's being shoved down our throats, that is not I don't believe that that's nearly as big of a concern as the fact that he may not be ready for that spot. Now, earlier in the year when he faced CM Punk at the day one event on Netflix on Raw for the world title and nearly won it, you could have had him win the belt there. But his promos against Punk, I thought, were well done. For where he's at and where Punk's at in both of their careers, I think he stood his ground. And he can wrestle his ass off. He gets a little too hyped up sometimes. He needs to calm his adrenaline. He has injured himself, as we all know, in the past, trying to flip an announce table that led to him not being at WrestleMania and so forth. So, sure, not putting him as the winner of the Royal Rumble may not have been a bad choice. But I don't think that they should have done it based on the fact that they're thinking they're going to shove him down our throats, because that, to me, it would have been on the number 5 on the list of concerns. For me, the top few would have been like, hey, he may not be ready. He needs to, I think, get more reps in the ring. He's somewhat just finding his footing on the show. He's in a group that is also just finding their footing with Paul Heyman. So I don't know. I think they were misguided in that reasoning for not making Braun Breaker win the Royal Rumble this past year. But again, I don't think it was maybe necessarily the wrong decision. Just the reasoning for it is a little misguided. Okay. Continuing. DanHausen backstage. JD was with him, and JD had DanHausen by the collar while Dom and Liv stood by, and McDonough demanded to know where their money was. DanHausen said he didn't have it. And it ends up being that Morgan threatened to bust open DanHausen with her world championship belt, and Dom gave DanHausen 30 seconds to find the money or he'd break his jaw. Okay. And then we had, let's not forget, one good thing before something bad. Okay, we're going to balance it out. A big Cass vignette aired, and headlines were shown regarding his personal issues and when he tore his ACL. And he said, even if you haven't reached the top, you have no idea just how far you can fall. And he'll be back on 8-3. No signs of Enzo Amore, but he could be in tow. We'll see. But Big Cass coming back, that's a positive. I don't know if he'll be in a tag team position. If he is, you would think that Enzo is not too far off, but that remains to be seen. But it'll be good to see Big Cass back. It's been how many years? So something bad. This Tom Brady crap continues. There was a Fanatic Fest video that aired, and it had Tom Brady playing to the crowd and saying he thinks he could get in the ring for one match. And it also had shots of Brady slapping Logan Paul, and they're flipping each other off. There's video of that as well floating out there. Why? This screams desperation. It screams lack of confidence in your current roster. If I was on the roster, I was an active member of the roster, and I constantly saw celebrity-endorsed bullshit. This isn't WrestleMania. WrestleMania, they go overboard. We all know it. It's a part of WrestleMania. It's been a part of WrestleMania all the way through the Vince McMahon era to bring celebrities in. Hell, it was part of WrestleMania 1. Yes, TKO has taken it to the nth degree and made celebrity involvement a central figure, a central marketing strategy for WrestleMania. They've gone too far. But at least for WrestleMania, you could justify, okay, well, this is horrible, but I get it as WrestleMania, blah, blah. You want to make it fine. I don't agree with it as to the intensity that they deliver that, but at least you could say it's WrestleMania. They are doing this throughout the entire year. TKO is not letting up on this strategy on this incessant need to bring in celebrities, or their perceived need to bring in celebrities. And again, this should be insulting to everyone on the roster, not just because it shows a lack of confidence in the current crop of talent, but it also is taking up in-ring time for people that you could be using to build a new star for. It's using precious minutes for some cheap, quick rating that they think they'll achieve and sustain. It won't happen. There is nobody who is looking at Tom Brady and saying, you know what, if he gets into wrestling, God damn it, I'll get into wrestling and I'll become a fan. This fan doesn't exist. These fans that TKO wants to curate and create, or think that these people exist out there in droves and they just need to be unearthed, don't exist. There's no one. There's literally no one in the world that loves a celebrity and will see that celebrity come into WWE. Maybe they see they're going to appear at SummerSlam, or they're doing something with pro wrestling. And sure, they tune in and it may pop a quick extra few thousand people. And then that person just becomes a lifelong wrestling fan. That person doesn't exist, because we all know what pro wrestling is. The world knows what it is. But they think, TKO execs believe, that there are these people out there, these undiscovered tribes of people that are walking among us undetected, that will see their beloved celebrity go into WWE and do something silly and become a fan. I want to see how that works. But beyond that, my personal feelings on this. So you they're clearly going to work to do something here with Brady and Logan Paul. That's been clear for weeks now. So suddenly Tom Brady, after insulting WWE as a company, as a product, pro wrestling as an industry. I made a video about this, talking about how what we do, or when the collective we, is scripted and fake, and that the linemen that he works with in the NFL would have essentially beat them down. And first of all, that wasn't even that wasn't what was asked of him in the question, but he has to make sure that he states that the people he worked with in the NFL could beat up the professional wrestlers. That had nothing to do with the question. Nothing. And he insulted the industry, and he didn't do it in a heel way that's like, oh boy, I want to see you get in the ring. No, it was just kind of like one of these celebrities that says the things about pro wrestling that you're expected to say if you know nothing about wrestling, but you've heard about it and you know it's not a real competitive sport, and what you do is real. And that's what somebody who is in that spot would say and should say. That's what's expected of you. So he said the very predictable, ignorant, completely lacking of respect for the industry. That's the response you get from somebody who has been totally removed from it, but has been in earshot of professional wrestling maybe in some part of his life. So I don't have any interest in seeing Logan Paul, the YouTube star. Yes, he has been a nice transition into WWE, but when you think about his origins, YouTube. And yes, he got into boxing. He's a hell of an athlete. He has proven himself. I'm looking forward to Logan Paul getting back in the ring. But now you're having him potentially go in the ring against Tom Brady, who suddenly wants a match with this fake stuff that he said just 10 minutes ago was stupid. But yet I wonder if TKO's money is speaking for Tom Brady right now. I'm sure that had nothing to do with his decision. So now you're going to have Logan Paul and Tom Brady do something really bad at SummerSlam or beyond. And I know Logan Paul will do his best. He'll put over Tom Brady like $1 million because Tom Brady is not going to be taking bumps. If he does, I'll give him credit. But even then, these are minutes that can be dedicated to helping build new stars. And instead, it is showing the talent on the roster who should be taking offense to this, and the general consumer that, hey, this is not all these no-name guys. We have celebrities coming in. We're cool. We're hip. That's the message they're trying to send. And they don't give two shits about how the talent feel or how the hardcore, quote unquote, wrestling fan feels. They don't care. They don't care. They're not aiming for us. They don't care about what we want anymore. They are trying to remake the wrestling fan in their own image, which is to say they don't want any wrestling fans at all. They want fans of the hybrid slop that they put out that is a mockery of professional wrestling to be entertained and invest all of their time and money into. But again, and I will quote JD from New York, who, again, I don't agree with everything he says, but he does make some great points. He's got a great following for good reason. He said, the only language that TKO understands is this: money, right? If you speak their language, they'll suddenly listen. So if we stop going to the events, if we stop watching, that's the only way to get their attention. Because yes, they listen to the negativity on social media. They do. Don't let anyone else fool you, because they're trying to not empower us to do more of that. Because if we do more of that, it'll make TKO look like fools, which will affect the image, the brand image. We could damage the brand image, and they know it, which will affect potential sponsor inquiries and everything else down the line, their ultimate bottom line. So we do have the power to do that to a significant degree. So don't let them ever fool you into thinking they don't pay attention. They do. But how to really get their attention beyond that? Right here, baby. The dollar bills. Keep them in your pocket. And they'll I think, maybe change their ways. All right, I don't know where the hell I went on that, but okay. DanHausen then comes out carrying a satchel. And he said, hello, DetroitHausen. And he said he thought he took care of Judgment Day at Saturday night's main event, but they still want their human money back. And DanHausen said he doesn't want it, but he doesn't want Judgment Day to have it. How about we give it all to the Fanhausens? And that's when they came in the ring and demanded that he hand over their money. DanHausen cursed them and tried to leave the ring, but Dom and McDonough caught him, roughed him up. And if you're listening to Michael Cole, it's Joe Henry. He has said Joe Henry multiple times, unironically. I don't think he's doing it on purpose. He's not doing it on purpose. Either that or he's saying the D very silently. For all his weird enunciations of things, kind of emphasis on certain letters, you know what those are. He certainly forgets how to pronounce the D. Hey, Cole, it's Hendery. Don't forget the D. All right. That's what she said. Okay. So we then get a brief video showing Roman Reigns cashing in and pinning Reigns at WrestleMania 31. I like that. Good to remind fans of how this rivalry has evolved. And I'm not being a jerk. I'm serious. I'm glad they do that stuff. And more DanHausen stuff backstage. And McDonough discovered that there was fake money in the satchel. And Obafemi entered the picture holding the satchel. And Oba asked if it was McDonough's bag. And Pierce booked Oba versus McDonough. Not a bad segment, but just, again, overexposure of DanHausen here. Obafemi and JD McDonough, 55 seconds, as expected. Fall from grace. Oba wins. And he said the real money after Oba won is in Hell in a Cell. And he'd see Brock Lesnar there. I mean, I'm kind of ready for Brock Lesnar and Obafemi. I feel as if Obafemi's been saying the same thing for, I don't know, 5 weeks, maybe. I'm ready for this dang match to happen. Can we just get to it? There's not much left to say. There's not much left for these two men to do. And should we do an over-under here on the number of F5s in the Hell in a Cell? Is it more or less than 5? How about, I think 5 is a reasonable number that could be that over-under number. Do you think it'll be fewer or greater than 5 F5s? Because you would think they can't go more than 7. I mean, even for as horribly as they have abused the finishes in pro wrestling today, they can't go more than 7. And the reason is, you may be saying, well, shouldn't it take more for the finale? Well, don't forget, they're in Hell in a Cell. So that means if you're going to have 5, it's not going to be all in the ring that you're going to do them. You're going to have F5s on, into the cell, on the ring apron. Presumably, if they bust out of the cage, it'll be on the announce table. It might even be on top of the cell itself. So not all F5s are created equally. And depending on where the F5 is delivered will, I think, depend on how impactful that F5 is. So I think 5 is a good over-under number. Okay, let's continue here. We have, let's see, Seth Rollins and Solo Sikoa. Solo Sikoa basically making his case to team up with Rollins and why he should, because essentially they have a common enemy. He's been in the bloodline before. He knows how they think, how they move, and he's going to get screwed at SummerSlam, and he's offering to watch Seth's back. If I were Seth, now I know he said you present a interesting idea. He's going to have to think about it. And that's when Solo said, what's there to think about? And of course, we get a Jacob Fatu coming out, chasing Solo out of the ring, and Seth Rollins puts him down. Now, if I were Rollins, I would have Solo in my corner. I would just say yes. Number one, it's more interesting to have Seth Rollins be teaming with Solo Sikoa. It's an interesting pairing. It's not something we've seen before. So from that perspective, you could look at it and go, well, is Solo really on his side? Is he going to rejoin the family? That to me is just so dead and gone. I could care less about what Solo does with the family and all that. But just the Seth and Solo dynamic is fresh. And from a logical perspective, which is always a dangerous one to be in with wrestling, you would think that Seth would be like, yeah, man, let's do it. Because if he's serious, then you've gained an ally and someone that could neutralize any threats or screw jobs. But if he's actually there to screw you, well, he could have done that by just running out anyway. He didn't have to offer to be by your side. He could have just actually come out when you're down, or just come out ringside and done whatever. He could have just done that on his own accord. He didn't have to tell you, I'm going to be by your side at ringside and then screw you. He could have just done it. Does that make sense? He could have done a run-in. So Seth really has nothing to lose here by just accepting Solo's invitation. And I don't think he did. Even though he didn't outright flat out deny it in this segment, I think he, based on the title of the video from WWE that they posted, it said that Seth Rollins refuses Solo Sikoa. And he didn't actually do that, though. That's a mischaracterization of what happened in that segment. He didn't outright flat deny Solo. But, all right. So we have then the next hour 2 here, which was Intercontinental Champion Penta taking on Ethan Page and Rusev and teaming with Chad Gable. And he did come out to his entrance theme here, as this analysis says, his cheesy entrance theme. I don't think so. And he stood on the ring and he did the silly clap, whatever. He's trying to get something going. He's trying to get a connection with the crowd, which he had until WWE fumbled it and didn't do much with it and just made him this kind of, woe is me. I'm so sorry for everything. Please, I'm begging for forgiveness. What a horrible way to follow up a brilliant matchup that he had with the Mask versus Mask El Grande Americano matchup. What is just a piss poor way to follow up by just essentially emasculating him, not owning his shit, and having him just go apologize to everybody. No. That was Chad Gable's coming out. Almost like he went from a boy to a man. And then you have him go out and apologize to Rey Mysterio and Rey Fenix and Ultimo Dragon or whatever. You know, like, why don't you have La Parka come out there too? I mean, who gives a shit? That was not necessary. And I think it did a lot of damage in terms of the follow-up of that momentum he had coming out of that matchup that went viral. Okay. The match went 8.5 minutes criminally because this easily could have gone 15. And we had Chad Gable and Penta win. How? Well, Penta hit Page with a Mexican Destroyer, and then Rusev tapped to the ankle lock. I don't know have we seen that before? Rusev tapping to the ankle lock. That was, I mean, again, despite all the momentum halting actions by creative, Chad Gable can get it back in the ring, man. That's where his bread is buttered. He gets in the ring, and within 5 minutes, you're like, oh, okay, yeah. This guy's the real deal. That's right. That's where he really forms his connection with the crowd. Because he is a legitimate badass athlete. He is a Kurt Angle knockoff. And I don't mean that disrespectfully. I know it sounds it, but it's not. He is a mini Kurt Angle. So, all right. We have then backstage, Seth laughed as he dared Jacob Fatu to hit him. And he knew that Fatu was given strict orders not to touch him. But he essentially, Fatu told Rollins that after Roman Reigns beats you, I'm going to beat your ass after SummerSlam. Oh boy. And notice Fatu is also cooled off. I mean, I did not enjoy the Roman Reigns Fatu story. I was very clear about that. It was very confusing as to who the fans were supposed to support. This up-and-coming star is facing a beloved babyface right now in Roman Reigns. What do we do? Fans didn't know. And then he looked heel at a lot of the promos, but babyface for part of it was weird. And then he just subserviates himself to Roman Reigns. So Fatu has now kind of been put back in his place, so to speak. But anyway, yeah, there's just a lot of mitigating factors here for the reasons why the product just feels cold right now. Okay. Paul Heyman was in a video discussing Brock and Obafemi. Heyman said he was asked not to use the word violence, and he questioned how he was supposed to sell the fans without telling them the truth about what awaits Oba in Minneapolis. He talked about the structure being unforgiving and uncompromising, and he said the violence is extreme. And Heyman said that Oba is overrated. Get it? He said everyone thinks the streak that Lesnar has put together of never losing inside the cell comes to an end at SummerSlam, but it's the other way around. All right. He said that Oba has delivered the greatest rookie in WWE since Lesnar, and Heyman said this next big thing thinks he will rule over Lesnar, but the truth is that Oba can't beat Lesnar inside the cell. Okay, so fine. I mean, you couldn't have sold it better. I don't need them to show up next week. I don't need a final face-off. I don't need final words. I don't need the marketing of both men under one roof. Just 5 days before they compete at SummerSlam. I don't need any of that. This is what you need to air. Only. This sold the whole thing because Heyman is a marketing genius and we don't need anything further. So we have then Joe Hendry and Dominic Mysterio. The match was, I don't have a timestamp here, but it wasn't very long. After Joe Hendry beats Dom with Danhausen entering the ring and hitting the Triple D, which is the Danhausen death drop, while the ref was focused on Sky and Morgan, and Hendry looked around and covered Dom, and that was it because we had Danhausen drive his Hausen mobile or whatever it is, his cartoon Scooby-Doo, what is it? The Magic Machine or whatever the hell the Scooby-Doo team wrote. What the hell? What is the vehicle? The Magic Machine? I know I'm close. What is the Scooby-Doo? Okay, I'm going to do this live on the air. This is bad. What is the Scooby-Doo vehicle? Mystery Machine. Oh my God, I'm a moron. Yeah, Mystery Machine. That's what it looks like to me. Not even close in terms of visual, but it feels like I'm watching a cartoon live. Anyway. Okay, so Joe Hendry wins, and DanHausen gets his 18th segment of the night. So LA Knight comes out, and again, he talks about Bloodline and half-wit Rollins, and he's also said that he's everything that everyone in the back wanted Reigns to be, but he couldn't. And I mean, I don't know how much truth is in this here, but that's probably where the crowd really was pushing back on LA Knight, is when he said that, though, because throughout the rest of the promo, the crowd was really relatively with him. And Knight is always very high energy in his promo. He didn't stumble too bad in this promo. It was a typical LA Knight promo. The problem is it's continually been focused on the Bloodline, which inherently makes it just not unwatchable, just kind of boring from the perspective of it. The content is driven at the same people for years. But then we get the match, LA Knight and Jacob Fatu. The match went 13 minutes with Jacob Fatu beating LA Knight. And it was just a mess here. We had Knight come in the ring and ate a super kick from Fatu. He hit a pop-up Samoan drop. Fatu hit his mighty moonsault finish, which is a horrible name for a finish, on Knight, and covered him for the 3 count. We had Jey Uso involved. Royce Keys was outside. Jay hopped up on the barricade. Keys spotted Jay, super kicked him 3 times. Knight dove through the ropes and drop kicked Jay. It's a whole fucking mess. I mean, I'm not trying to cuss, but that's how I feel. It's a mess. How are we supposed to feel about the Usos? They're aligned with Roman Reigns. We like Roman Reigns, but we like LA Knight, and LA Knight and the Usos are just trapped in this infinity war. And I guess that's a pun to Doomsday Trailer. If you haven't seen it, of course, go watch it. But you then have Royce Keys, who's supposed to be this up-and-coming guy. He gets involved in this story. But we like Jimmy and Jay, unless they're facing across from LA Knight. But Jacob Fatu is this guy who Roman faced, we were supposed to trust. But he and Jay have been having tensions, and I guess that's smoothed over. But now Jay and Knight are still... Like, this is just... I don't even care. I just don't care anymore. For the love of God, can we get LA Knight away from the Usos? Just anything to do with any Samoan ever. Take LA Knight. Put him on a different planet from Roman Reigns and his bloodline. Just remove him completely. LA Knight needs new opponents. It tells you too that they're out of ideas, that they don't have opponents lined up for the bloodline to face. So they have to kind of do babyface, and then the crowd's just supposed to choose depending on what and who their target is at the moment. It's weird. Anyway, I get the confusion. I get the frustration from fans on this episode, and I did complain about a lot of different stuff, but I also am trying to give you guys a big picture perspective. I'm not here to defend or apologize for WWE. Of course not. I spend most of my time complaining about the product today because that's just how I feel about it. But the big picture is this SummerSlam card is pretty stacked. I opened the show saying that. I'll close the show saying that. This SummerSlam card is pretty damn stacked. And I do think it will deliver. Because it has to. It has to. All right. That'll do it for me, everybody, on this show here for the Raw Review. Thank you, everybody, for joining me. You can follow me on Patreon for ad-free content at patreon.com/WWE podcast. videos are coming for those of you on Patreon as well. So stay tuned for that, and we'll be talking to you soon.
Thanks for listening to the WWE Podcast. Don't forget to subscribe on your favorite podcast app so you don't miss a show, or head to WWEpodcast.com. And for all of these shows ad-free, head over to patreon.com/WWE Podcast. Until then, we'll see you next time.